All right, so we got Isom, ill-advised, part two. This guy right here. Um, I feel that we have improved from the previous story. So we have new and interesting characters. We got some real fun set pieces. Um, all sorts of mythical things like hell creatures. We got some dragons coming in. So this really was a lot of fun for me to read. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. All right. So continuing where we left off with part one, we now have Avery talking with Cedric, the owner of Taylorsville, and he's just recounting the events that made him give up the superhero life to begin with, and what led to him giving Cedric the suit as a gesture of like a symbolic gesture of him putting it down, him being done. So we get to see in flashback form um, this event, like a cosplay event or like a Comic Con or something like that, and we have two survivors of the events that happened prior, and uh, they're left hiding. Avery is able to locate them and says, "Okay, you're safe now." However, we now meet Chadrin, who really wants to attack these two, and Avery is doing everything in his power to fight off this individual, and Chadrin is just shaking it off. It's not affecting him one way or another, and ultimately he does end up killing one of these young individuals, and in a pretty gruesome fashion, I might add. And that just was too much for him. Now that may not be the full story, and I'm really suspecting that it's not, but that is ultimately what we are seeing. That was the reason why Avery uh, hung up the superhero life. And you know, Cedric then tells him, he's like, okay, well, if you're getting this suit, no more quitting. And Avery looks to him, smirks a little bit, and says, yeah, agreed. You know, and so after he leaves Taylorsville, he heads back to the ranch, and he notices that his door is left open. And of course, he thinks that's pretty unusual, so he goes to look, and he is greeted by two hellish beasts, um, who automatically just start attacking him. So he fights them off. He is able to um, get a little bit of messaging out from them. They say things like, "We know what you are," and then also, "He will be seeing you soon." So it doesn't specify who that he is. That's all that they say before they have stabbed him in the shoulder at this point, and also shortly thereafter burned down the place after engulfing themselves in flames as well. They disappeared. Their bodies are nowhere to be seen. And, again, the building's engulfed in flames. Avery is able to get out of there, and then he is greeted by some of his other employees who came to investigate, what's going on over here. And that's when we see um, these drones come in, and then we hear from off in the distance, let me do my job, as the drones start to um, douse the building in either water or some sort of flame retardant, just to um, control the flames and eventually put them out. And that's when we meet Gooding. Um, he's a man of many talents. One of them tends to be medical administration as well as fire rescue. He's a pretty interesting character. He also specializes in investigative work, uh, all for a low fee. So I did, on a side note here, I did kind of like the addition of the advertisement for Gooding. I thought that was kind of fun. So continuing on, we have Avery being tended to medically. The fire is being handled, and Gooding tells Avery, "Hey, why don't you send me a description of your two attackers, and I'll see if we can figure out who they are and where they may have came from." And so Avery decides to go ahead and go on home at this point, after giving Gooding the information. Uh, he's had a pretty long day already, so he wants to just catch a quick nap, catch a little shut eye. It's pretty quickly interrupted when he gets another phone call, and once again it's Altona on the other line. This time she says, Darren came to visit her at her office. Now I'll get more into that later, but for the moment, um, he's told Avery is told not to worry about it. That she's safe, she's taken care of. But that does piss him off something fierce. Um, he is, he says he's going to kill Darren at this point. I'm going to kill this man, and rightfully so. For we'll see what happened later during that visit. Um, but now it's time to go out to Goodings, and you know Avery gets prepped, gets ready to go out the door, and he is greeted by Sam's wife. Now, um, Avery wasn't aware that Sam is actually missing. He just thought it was a little unusual uh, that his ranch was like one of the buildings was left just wide open like that. That's unusual. So she, tells him, "Hey, um, I haven't seen him. Do you know anything?" And Avery said, "No, I don't know anything. However, I was attacked at this building, so why don't you come with me to Goodings, and we'll see if we can get Sam's whereabouts figured out as well." So they make it out to Goodings, and they're airlifted by one of Gooding's robot assistants from the front gate to the actual lab itself. And Avery describes to Gooding exactly what happened, that these two hellish beasts attacked him, burned down the place, and this sent shockwaves through Sam's wife, where she ended up passing out. Gooding says, "Okay, hey, get her to the medical wing. We'll take care of her. She'll be safe. She'll be taken care of. But let's see what we got." And uh, he said, "I don't have anything readily available in my files, but I can do a little bit of digging." That wasn't good enough for Avery. He wanted to kind of, figure out, so, especially since it may seem that they have Sam as well. So Gooding then suggests, "Okay, well, I know somebody who may know a bit more, and I can give you the information to get there and give her a heads up that you're coming. Because this place you're not going to find through GPS. I'm going to have to give you all of the instructions." And this is where we're going to meet Bloodruth. So Avery drives out into the middle of Texas, where he stumbles across a actual castle, like think medieval, stone walls, drawbridge, with moat filled with crocodiles, the whole 9 yards. He starts to cross this drawbridge, and he is greeted with two dire wolves. And on top of that, he is also greeted by a dragon, of all things. So things aren't going so spectacularly for him just as he approaches this place. Luckily, everybody is called to stand down. And then we get our first look at Sydney Bloodruth. And she basically looks like a cowboy witch combo here. She's got the cowboy hat, she's got the trench coat, she's got the boots. She looks pretty cool, to be quite honest. I was really enjoying the look here. So she then goes on to ask why he's here. He explains Gooding sent me, and said that, "Oh, you should, I was told that you can help me track down these beasts. He proceeds to tell her the story of what happened at the ranch. She said, "I can't guarantee your friend's safety or that he's even there. I have tracked one as far out as 50 miles. We'll let Gooding figure out as to why they're here, but I just want them gone. They're a pest, got to get them gone." Uh, Avery agrees. He says, "Fine." Uh, we do see Sydney just kind of flip through some books and just saying she was refreshing her memory. So to me, that is saying she's not an accept. That would be my initial thought, that this is learned. But we don't know yet. So continuing on, they take her dragon out to the mountainous areas that she had talked about. They do spot one from the dragon, from which Avery leaps from it and manages to take that one out. Then they proceed into the cave where this one was located just outside of and find just swarms of these things. They do also see an area up top that looks like it could be housing some sort of prisoners or, just looking to contain something. And they figure, okay, if Sam is here, that best bet's going to be he's up there. So they decide to split up, with Avery taking on the majority of these hell beasts, while Sydney decides, she's going to go try and see what's up there, and if Sam is up there, go rescue him. So Avery is just, he's going to town on these things. Like, he's got a personal vendetta. He's just whooping everyone's ass in sight. He's just, you get a punch and you get a punch. He's just whooping their ass. And all the while, Sydney's going up, using some magic to get some of these beasts off of her and also make her way up. And she does, in fact, find Sam there, springs him loose. She is in a weakened condition by this point due to her magic. We'll get more into that later. And she is able to create at least some steps to get them off the cliff's edge where this prison cell was located and manage to get them back down to safety. And again, she's in a weakened condition. Sam's also in a weakened condition. And so when some beasts start to approach them for an attack, they're not in the best state to ward these creatures off of them. And of course, Avery is dealing with the other swarm of these things. So luckily for her, the direwolves came in and saved the two of them, and managed to continue to fight on. And they managed, Sydney and Sam then get out to the dragon and are able to start to fly out to safety. And Avery sees that, takes the hint, and starts to get out too, and manages to really jump up and catch up to the dragon as it's in air. And he says, well, what about your wolves? They can handle themselves. And from the looks of things, yeah, they're not going to have any problems here. And so ends Isom's / Avery's story within Isom 2. We do have several subplots going on. Like I said, Avery got that call from Altona. Well, she was confronted by Darren and his thugs at Projectus. He was waiting for her in her office, and this is actually how the whole comic even starts, is this little arc here. And Darren just wants to know more about Avery at this point. He wants to know how he was able to best Santuan in that last matchup. And he also put out a hit and wants to make an example. So tension is pretty high when you see Darren in this office. So Darren, he does a real bitch ass move. and that slap Altona. I mean, he slaps the shit out of her. She goes right to the floor, and then while she's there, he pulls out his gun, and before anything can go further than that, we hear from behind another door, "That's enough. That's you're done." And we find that it's the founder of Projectus, Lincoln. And I mean, he comes in with an armed squad too. They got submachine guns. They're ready to go to war if they need to. And Darren knows he can't do anything further here. He knows. And so he's told to leave. And before he does, Lincoln says, "Hey, that little bitch ass stunt you did, shabam!" Or oh man, it was so satisfying to watch him just watch Darren just get the shit just punched right out of him. It was God, that was satisfying. I enjoy that page quite a bit. Um, so that also, raises tensions between Darren and Lincoln, of course. We do see Lincoln surviving an assassination attempt. Um, he and one of his assistants is driving out um, from Projectus, and we see a car rolling up next to him, and they start shooting. It's Darren's goons, and they start shooting the side, and the car's fine. Lincoln was prepared for some sort of an attempt like that, so he reinforced his car, with bulletproof material on the metal and the glass. So Lincoln's assistant also starts to make a move. He starts reaching his hand in. Looks like he's grabbing his gun, and he said, nothing personal, it's only business, or something to that effect. And that's when Lincoln starts to take control. He deactivates the windshield, and he says, the assistant says, you're gonna kill us both, and Lincoln's like, I'm not dying, like I'm not. Um, and so they crash. Lincoln does go through the window, and I think Lincoln is an accept of sorts. I'm not certain as to what kind of powers we have. I would say it would be high on the defense, uh, being that he would put himself through that. So either he can heal really quickly, or he's got very very tough like skin. Um, I'm kind of leaning towards a Colossus type, just because before they even left, they managed to go through some metal detectors, and it did go off for Lincoln. And the assistant who eventually tried to kill him, was like, up in the security, why else you got a gun? And Lincoln's like, what gun? So I'm thinking maybe some sort of like metal skin type deal, or I have no idea. To be honest, I'm purely speculating here. Uh, so yeah, tensions obviously going up between Lincoln and Darren there, because uh, Darren did not try to hide the fact that he just tried to kill him. I mean, when they rolled up, they said Boston the regards, and some of these guys, if not all of them, were in presence of Lincoln during the whole confrontation with Altona there. Um, so going back to Darren at this point, like I said, when Darren showed up with Altona, he is wondering, what's going on with um, Avery. So he summons Santuan, and he starts questioning him like, is this like, is he like you, or is he an exem? And Santuan he's like, well, I'm not your informant. You don't pay me for that. I'm hired muscle, so that's what I do. And I mean, this pisses Darren off. So he said, well, fine. You know what? Piss off. You're fucking fired. Get out of here. And then so that's that. Now Santuan's out to do whatever he may. I'm very curious to see where his story starts to go. Like I said in the previous video, he'll do whatever for the right price. So I mean, I think he could do good or bad. I think he's going to be our anti-hero, um, but more so just if it's for the price. I think he is purely driven by the money and doesn't really care what the job is. So you know, he can do heroic stuff or some real shady shit. So, real curious to see what he ends up doing. Uh, and one of the guys in Darren's crew just was like, boss, are you sure that's a good idea to fire Santuan like that? He is a strong guy and he did whoop Avery's ass one time before getting bested by him the second. And Darren just pissed off. He's like, shut up or I'll fire your ass too. Just stop. So, we start to see that this thing with Avery is really driving Darren kind of insane. Um, and I think he's going to do some really bad shit in the next one. Just really trying to get into Avery's head and drive him insane. All right, so I want to just talk a little bit about some of the new characters that we see. I've already talked quite a bit about this one, Lincoln, the founder of Projectus. I'm pretty sure he's an accept of sorts. Um, and even Darren doesn't want to mess with him too much. He's a pretty powerful man himself. Um, so I do see a war of sorts starting to brew between Lincoln and Darren, and I want to know more about this individual. I think he's a lot of fun. Speaking of fun characters, Gooding, a handyman, capable of doing all sorts of stuff. Really intelligent individual, has a lab with all sorts of goodies. Like I said, robot assistants who can fly around. He's got drones that can help put out fires. Um, he's able to do a lot of research and help people. He's got like a medical wing in there. So I'm really curious to see what else he can do. Because it does say, fire, rescue, medical, and investigative plus more. So um, I want to see, what drives this individual. Uh, why is he? Why does he want to do this? I don't think he's just strictly doing it for the money like Santuan does. I think he wants to do, a lot of good, but wants to, make some money too. Um, so I'm really curious to see what else we got with Gooding. We got Chadron. They we got to just meet him briefly, but I mean he was somebody that just shook off all of Isom's attacks and was able to carry out a killing of a younger individual. It didn't really fret much, It just shook Avery to his core. Somebody this powerful. So I want to see more of this guy as well in later installments. Whether he was already defeated by somebody else, whether he's kind of lurking around and will reappear for Avery to overcome. Uh, don't know. Really excited to see more of him. I mean, kind of a big bad. We also at the very end, where all these hell beasts were, we see what appears to be a leader of sorts. I don't know if it's the main guy or if he is just kind of like an underling. But we do see like a more armored winged hell beast. Um, not thrilled with what just took place and um, that his prisoner was sprang loose and all that. I also kind of feel like these individuals, these hellish beasts, might be who Norfolka is tracking down. Um, in the previous issue, we do see at the tail end of Isom 1, they were tracking individuals, and my speculation is that it is these hell beasts, since we do hear that they are starting to grow and start to spread out a little bit more. So I kind of feel like that's where we're going with. And then my personal favorite in this is Sydney Bloodruth. Um, She is a magical being. Like I said, she basically looks like a witchy cowboy. I was really enjoying the look of her. And I'm really curious of her abilities. So she uses, like I said, literal blood magic. So she was converting blood from her body into magic to do an array of things. She used it to do like a big old blast. Um, that's basically what weakened her there. She used a lot of blood for that one, so it did weaken her. And then she was able to create temporary, like very temporary platforms where it would stop for just a moment, just enough to let her and Sam get down to safety. Um, Now, I want to know, is she an except or is this like studied? Um, was there some sort of ritual to give her her powers? I'm very curious. Like, I have a lot of questions. Does she have to use strictly her blood? Can she use anybody's blood? Does it have to be alive, dead? Like, can coagulated blood be used for things? I'm very curious. So she is a character I'm very, very interested in at this point. Um, and so, I mean, yeah, we got some really awesome characters in this one. This part of what really drew me to liking this one a little bit more. I'd say at least over the first one. Um, there's some of these characters, they really do it for me. I gotta say. Uh, so let's go on to the things I like and things I felt could have been adjusted a little bit. Your pros and your cons here. So the I felt the writing and the action were improved over the first one. That was another thing that I thought what made this one superior over its predecessor. So in the first one, I mentioned some of the clunky writing that kind of drew me out of the story from time to time. It was kind of like an exposition dump, just told to the character that it was about. I didn't think that made sense. I wasn't finding that in this one, so I was really happy to see that. There was no writing things that were just pulling me out of the comic. Um, so I thought that was great. Plenty of action, like I said, between like Shadrin and Isom and um, Bloodruth, Isom, the Hell Beast, um, the whole ordeal with Lincoln. These were all real good times here. So yeah, definitely enjoyed all that. And hey, did I mention Bloodruth? I think she's a pretty awesome character. Uh, so it wasn't just her. So I I do I do also really like Lincoln. Um, Seems like a pretty awesome dude. I also, like I said, I'm pretty sure he's an accept as well. Gooding was also very interesting. I want to see what all uses. Where else will he pop up? Like, will he also periodically assist the Alpha Core when stuff goes down with them? They're dealing with super powered individuals. Will he then pop in to kind of assist with medical treatment and stuff like that from collateral damage? Very curious. Um, and Chadron, I want to know more on this individual as well. Like after he killed that individual, and did he allow Isom to live there? Did he? Was it just to send a message to him of sorts? What was the purpose of that attack? Um, what happened after that was carried out? Very curious as to what became of him. Maybe that wasn't truly the thing that finally broke Avery and made him quit. Maybe I'm willing to bet that there's a little bit more to that story. Uh, so the only thing that I would maybe suggest, or you know, or even just call like the only thing I could say would be like a downside to this comic, um, would be this is, you know, Isom's comic, but we spent a lot of time with other individuals as well. Now, a lot of that had to do with Avery in some way, shape, or form, but I still feel like we could have maybe trimmed down a little bit. Like personally, I would have maybe cut out the Alpha Core Yaira part, just because they do glance on Avery just for a moment, but it's mostly irrelevant to what's going on here. I don't mind it. You know, I like seeing that, okay, you know, some shit went down. We need to figure out what happened. I was fine with that. But that could have also been put into their book. And we had more to do with Avery ourselves. So that's really about the only um, con that I put in there. I would really honestly call it more of a nitpick than anything else because I I didn't mind, you know, all these other characters. They didn't bother me in any way, shape, or form. I really enjoyed expanding and getting more characters out of it while following Avery on his arc here. So that wraps it up, man. Again, totally recommend this book, um, especially if you enjoyed the first one. I I definitely feel that this one is improved over the first one. So that gives me a lot of hope that the third one will be even better. Um, but up next, we have Alpha Core. That's going to be my third review. So I want to know, guys, you know, what are some of the things that you agree with me on? What do you disagree with me on? What would you like to see me cover next? I'm open to pretty much any genre outside of hentai. Don't get it. No, don't be a troll. Um, but I mean, it's like fantasy, sci-fi, um, horror. Like you basically name it. Obviously, superhero. I've been covering superheroes. Um, you name it, I'll cover it. I'm all for it. So just let me know. You can either tell me here in the comments or on Twitter, X, whatever. Um, Gorillamar is the name on both accounts. So just let me know what you think. And like I said, Alpha Core is up next, and then we're going to be diving into non-Rippaverse stuff. But until then, guys, thank you again for watching this video, and God bless.